Ever wonder what it really felt like to fight a war beneath the waves where one wrong move could mean total silence forever? The Battle of the Atlantic wasn't fought with glory. It was fought with fear, grit, and the hum of sonar pings echoing through steel. Historians say only a few films ever got it right. From torpedo duels to storm-lashed decks, these are the sea stories that stayed true when others just floated by. Number 15, Atlantic Convoy, 1942. Before CGI storms and surround sound, there was raw courage shot on black and white film. Atlantic Convoy came out during the war itself, when audiences didn't need dramatization, they were living it. The movie follows the Royal Navy sailors guarding merchant ships across the North Atlantic, while German submarines lurk below. It's simple, patriotic, and surprisingly grounded for its time. Made in the middle of the Second World War, it's less a war thriller and more a reflection of real-life endurance. Ships weren't glamorous here. They were cold, wet, and constantly breaking down. The dialogue feels clipped and authentic, echoing how real sailors spoke. Short sentences, longer silences. Because the film was produced by people who had actually been through the Atlantic runs, it captures that bone-deep fatigue, the endless nights, the constant scanning of dark waves for shadows that shouldn't move. Critics now call Atlantic Convoy one of the first films to portray the Atlantic War without exaggeration or glory. Its tension doesn't come from explosions, it comes from waiting. The creaks of the ship and the hum of the engines say more than any speech could. For many historians, this is where cinematic truth about the Atlantic battle began. Number 14, Hell and High Water, 1954. This one opens like a slow burn, but builds into a nail-biting undersea chase. Hell and High Water, directed by Samuel Fuller, takes viewers deep into Cold War paranoia. But what makes it fascinating is how accurately it portrays submarine life. The confined spaces, the mechanical noise, the constant dampness, every frame feels claustrophobic. Fuller, a war veteran himself, obsessed over realism. He used real naval consultants and insisted on shooting inside genuine submarine sets, rather than easy Hollywood mock-ups. You can almost smell the oil and feel the recycled air. Though the plot dips into early nuclear fears, it's the discipline and tension among the crew that make it shine. They're not movie heroes. They're ordinary men forced to make split-second decisions in darkness. The underwater sequences are especially impressive for the 50s. Instead of flashy visuals, you get dim lights, echoing metal, and the unnerving calm before sonar hits. Fuller understood that true suspense doesn't need noise, it needs patience. Historians have praised it for turning routine naval maneuvers into gripping human drama. While the story mixes politics with action, its portrayal of submarine duty remains among the most accurate of its era. Hell and High Water doesn't glorify war. It studies what pressure does to people trapped miles below the surface. Number 13, The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, 1976. Now, this one's a curveball. You won't find epic battles here, but you will find the haunting silence after them. The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea isn't technically a war film. It's a meditation on what happens to sailors when the fighting ends. Based on Yukio Mishima's novel, the movie captures the emotional wreckage left behind by years at sea. Director Louis John Carlino filmed with an eye for detail. The ship interiors are cramped and authentic, and the way the camera lingers on ropes, rust, and waves gives the story a lived-in realism. Critics often overlook it in war discussions, but maritime historians appreciate how it nails the psychology of men who can't readjust to life on land. The sea here isn't a setting, it's a ghost. Every creak of wood and every quiet horizon reminds the viewer of the unspoken losses of the Atlantic campaigns. The film's tone is eerie, detached, and deeply human. While not a traditional Battle of the Atlantic entry, it belongs on this list because of how well it mirrors the cost of that era, not in explosions, but in isolation. The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea is the calm after the storm, and for anyone who studies naval history, that calm can be even more unsettling. It's number 12, Western Approaches, 1944. Before computer graphics and post-war nostalgia, Western Approaches was made by men who just come off the ships themselves. Shot in blazing Technicolor at the height of World War II, It was the first British feature filmed entirely by the Crown Film Unit using real merchant Navy crews instead of actors. That decision changed everything. You can see the truth in every line of their weather-burned faces. The story follows a lifeboat of torpedoed sailors adrift in the North Atlantic while a German U-boat stalks nearby. There are no speeches, no glamour, just cold, salt, and silence. Director Pat Jackson shot much of it on the open sea with 35mm cameras lashed to decks. The realism is staggering. The waves are real, the exhaustion is real, even the fear feels documentary-level authentic. The film became a training piece for convoy recruits because it captured not only the danger, but the discipline that kept men alive. Historians still call Western approaches the closest thing to witnessing the Battle of the Atlantic as it happened. Its mix of documentary truth and cinematic poetry set the standard for every submarine and convoy movie that followed. 80 years later, it's more than a film, it's living evidence of courage afloat. Number 11. Above Us, The Waves. 1955. Now we dive into stealth literally. Above Us, The Waves dramatizes the real-life British midget submarine attack on the German battleship Tirpitz during the Second World War. The film doesn't exaggerate. It builds tension from authentic procedure, quiet bravery, and the dreadful patience of underwater missions. Producers consulted actual Royal Navy divers who'd taken part in similar operations. The result? Every command, every hand signal, every sweat-soaked silence feels credible. There are no big speeches, just concentration. The cramped submarine interiors are filmed with such realism, you almost feel the oxygen running low. What makes it stand out is its mood. The sea isn't blue here, it's black and suffocating. You hear the tick of the depth gauge, the creak of pressure, and the pounding hearts of men who know one wrong move could mean never surfacing. Historians love Above Us the Waves because it balances cinematic suspense with technical authenticity. Instead of focusing on explosions, it highlights how discipline and teamwork win the day. There's nothing showy about it, and that's exactly why it works. For many viewers, this remains one of the finest portrayals of real submarine warfare ever put on screen. It's proof that you don't need noise to show courage, just silence, steel, and the will to keep going when the waves are quite literally above you. Number 10. The Silent Enemy. 1958. This film proves that sometimes the quietest battles are the most intense. The Silent Enemy tells the true story of Lionel Buster Crabbe, a Royal Navy diver whose underwater missions during the Second World War pushed the limits of human endurance. There are no roaring guns or grand naval fleets here, just men in diving suits racing the clock beneath hostile waters. Shot with extraordinary realism for its time, the film's underwater scenes were pioneering. Director William Fairchild worked closely with Royal Navy experts, and the production even used authentic diving equipment from the 40s. The sequences aren't flashy, they're tense, deliberate, and suffocating. Every bubble, every turn of a wrench feels real because it was filmed by divers, not special effects artists. It's a war story stripped to its essentials: fear, courage, and oxygen running out. The sea becomes an enemy all its own, pressing down on the divers as they attempt to neutralize danger in total silence. Critics and historians alike praise the movie for capturing what underwater warfare truly looked and felt like. While The Silent Enemy dramatizes certain details, it gets the tone exactly right: the paranoia, the discipline, the loneliness of fighting in the total darkness. It's not about glory, it's about survival in a world where sound itself could give you away. This is history told through pressure and silence, and it's still gripping decades later. Number 9. Sink the Bismarck. 1960. If the Battle of the Atlantic had a single turning point, Sink the Bismarck captured it. Released in 1960, this British war drama recreated the hunt for Germany's most feared battleship with near-documentary precision. The filmmakers used newly declassified information from the Royal Navy to ensure accuracy. Many of the dialogue lines came straight from official combat reports, giving it an almost journalistic feel. Director Lewis Gilbert, who later made Bond movies, handled this film with restraint, no unnecessary heroics, just strategy and sacrifice. The scenes depicting radar tracking and ship-to-ship communication are surprisingly gripping because they're rooted in fact, not fantasy. Cinematographer Christopher Chalice filmed aboard real Royal Navy vessels, which gave the film its cold, metallic realism. The sea isn't painted as a stage, it's a vast, unpredictable monster. The sound of sonar echoes, the flash of gunfire over dark waves, and the desperate calm of the command room all combine to create authenticity that historians still applaud. Sink the Bismarck is remembered not only for its realism, but for its tone. It's not chest-thumping patriotism, it's methodical tension. Every decision feels like a gamble, every order feels like a burden. This film doesn't just show victory, it shows the cost of chasing it across the freezing Atlantic. Number 8. U-571, 2000. Few films in modern times have reignited naval debate like U-571. Critics argued about its liberties, but historians admit the technical realism of its submarine life is impeccable. Released in 2000, it follows an American crew attempting to seize an enemy code machine inspired by real missions, but reimagined for drama. The film's accuracy lies in its atmosphere, not its storyline. Director Jonathan Mostow insisted on full-scale submarine interiors with working hydraulics. Actors trained in genuine sub-procedures, learning how to close valves, reload torpedoes, and move through those suffocating metal corridors. The lighting was designed to mimic actual submarine conditions: dim, claustrophobic, and soaked in sweat. Sound design steals the show. Every creak, every depth charge, every groan of metal under pressure feels terrifyingly real. Historians and naval veterans praised how it captured the tension of life underwater, the exhaustion, the noise, and the sense that death could come quietly from below. While U-571 stirred controversy over who truly performed similar operations, its portrayal of the psychological strain of submarine warfare remains powerful. It's the kind of film that leaves your palms sweating and your breath short. For all its dramatization, it nails the feeling of being trapped under thousands of tons of pressure, both metal and moral. Number 7. The Battle of the River Plate, 1956. This isn't just a war film, it's a chess match played on the ocean. The Battle of the River Plate dramatizes the real events of 1939, when 3 British cruisers cornered the German pocket battleship Admiral Graf Spee off the coast of Uruguay. What followed was one of the most strategic naval encounters in history, and the film captures it with remarkable authenticity. Directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, the duo behind the Red Shoes, the film brings technical precision and human insight. They filmed aboard real ships, sometimes in the very waters where the real battle took place. Every command and maneuver reflects the actual battle reports, and the dialogue mirrors naval radio transcripts of the era. There's no melodrama, just professionalism and tension. The captains are portrayed as calm, intelligent adversaries, both human, both flawed. This even-handed approach is what historians love about the film. It doesn't demonize or glorify, it analyzes. Even more impressive, the filmmakers had access to the real Admiral Graf Spee, scuttled off Montevideo, and integrated historical imagery into the narrative. That authenticity gives the movie a tangible weight. The Battle of the River Plate stands as one of the most accurate depictions of naval combat ever put to screen, deliberate, respectful, and hauntingly real. Number 6. Convoy, 1940. Before Hollywood turned the Atlantic into spectacle, Convoy showed what it actually felt like. Released in 1940, this British drama was made while the war was still raging, and it's steeped in immediacy. The film follows a Royal Navy destroyer escorting merchant ships across a storm-torn Atlantic, battling exhaustion, loneliness, and unseen dangers lurking beneath the waves. Director Penn Tennyson shot the film with help from the Royal Navy, giving him access to ships, sailors, and the kind of procedural detail that later movies could only guess at. The dialogue is clipped and authentic, the pacing slow but deliberate, just like real patrol duty. There are no grand speeches, no swelling anthems, just fog, fear, and duty. What makes Convoy remarkable is its quiet confidence. It doesn't need to invent drama because the real conditions were already dramatic enough. The cramped cabins, the rolling decks, the constant radio chatter, everything feels lived in. Historians often cite Convoy as one of the first films to truly represent the Battle of the Atlantic from the sailor's perspective. It showed the war not as a series of victories, but as a grind long hours, endless ocean, and courage that rarely made the newsreels. For authenticity and atmosphere, Convoy remains a haunting portrait of the men who kept the lifelines of the war open. Number 5. In Which We Serve, 1942. Few films capture the soul of service quite like In Which We Serve. Directed by David Lean and co-written by Noel Coward, this film was made while the Second World War was still raging. That's right, no hindsight, no safety of time, just raw immediacy. It tells the story of HMS Torrin, a British destroyer sunk during the Battle of Crete, through flashbacks from its surviving crew. The brilliance of the film lies in its realism, not from explosions or effects, but from emotion. Coward based much of the script on real accounts from sailors who lived through Atlantic convoys and Mediterranean battles. Even the smallest details, the way officers speak, how the crew huddles during an air raid, comes straight from first-hand observation. Historians love how In Which We Serve avoids propaganda. Sure, it's patriotic, but it's honest about fear, loss, and exhaustion. The crew isn't superhuman. They're ordinary men doing their duty while missing their families. The use of real Royal Navy advisors and actual naval equipment gives it a tactile authenticity you can still feel 80 years later. What makes it unforgettable is its tone, respectful, grounded, and quietly devastating. By the end, you don't just admire the sailors, you understand them. That's why historians still rank In Which We Serve among the most emotionally accurate naval films ever made. Number 4. The Enemy Below, 1957. Here's where the Battle of the Atlantic turns into a game of nerves. The Enemy Below pits an American destroyer captain against a German U-boat commander in a tense psychological duel across the ocean. Forget flashy battles. This is about strategy, patience, and respect between adversaries. Director Dick Powell, a former actor turned filmmaker, went for technical precision. The film consulted naval veterans from both sides, ensuring the ship and submarine maneuvers were true to life. Even the sonar tracking and torpedo sequences were mapped using real naval tactics. Every creak of metal, every echoing sonar ping feels earned. What makes it powerful is balance. The German captain, played by Kurt Jürgens, isn't a cartoon villain. He's intelligent, weary, and human. The American commander, portrayed by Robert Mitchum, shares that same fatigue and professionalism. Historians often highlight this film as one of the earliest to portray mutual respect between enemies, a rare, realistic touch for its time. The tension builds like a chess match. Every move, every order could mean survival or destruction. There's no soundtrack of glory, only the rhythmic hum of engines and the pulse of human endurance. The Enemy Below reminds viewers that the true battlefield isn't just the ocean, it's the mind. Number 3. Greyhound, 2020. Modern, fast, and laser-focused Greyhound proved that even in the digital age, historical accuracy can still rule the waves. Written by and starring Tom Hanks, this lean thriller follows a U.S. Navy commander leading a convoy through the most dangerous stretch of the Atlantic. It's inspired by C.S. Forrester's novel, The Good Shepherd, which historians already considered one of the truest fictional accounts of the campaign. The film is almost obsessive about realism. Every maneuver, radar blip, and sonar ping is by the book. Hanks and director Aaron Schneider consulted U.S. Navy historians to recreate the exact language, tactics, and radio procedures of 1942 convoy escorts. The pacing never lets up. The audience experiences what commanders actually endured: constant stress, sleep deprivation, and the haunting responsibility for hundreds of lives. Shot with digital precision but old-school discipline, Greyhound strips away Hollywood filler. There's no backstory, no love subplot, just duty, command, and chaos. Naval veterans praised it for portraying how officers had to think, decide, and react in real time. It's not romantic, it's not cinematic comfort. It's procedural tension at its finest. Historians say Greyhound finally brought the invisible terror of the Atlantic convoys to modern audiences, and it did it without a single wasted frame. Number 2. The Cruel Sea, 1953. If one film defines the Battle of the Atlantic, it's this one. The Cruel Sea, based on Nicholas Monserrat's best-selling novel, is the gold standard of naval realism. Released in 1953, it follows the crew of the corvette HMS Compass Rose as they escort convoys and fight exhaustion, weather, and despair. From the opening narration, this is the story of the Battle of the Atlantic and the men who fought it. You know it's not about medals or glory, it's about endurance. The film doesn't hide the fear or fatigue of those endless crossings. Director Charles Friend filmed using real Royal Navy ships and relied heavily on Montserrat's own wartime experience as a convoy officer. That authenticity seeps through every frame. The ocean itself is the villain here, cold, merciless, and unchanging. The film's realism comes not just from hardware, but from emotion. When a ship goes down, there's no music, no cheering, just silence, and the knowledge that the convoy must go on. Historians and veterans hailed the cruel sea as the truest portrayal of the Atlantic War ever filmed. It captures the loneliness, the camaraderie, and the quiet bravery of ordinary sailors who fought not for fame, but for each other. Number 1, Das Boot, 1981, and finally, the crown jewel of accuracy. Das Boot isn't just a movie, it's an ordeal. Directed by Wolfgang Petersen, this German masterpiece immerses viewers inside a U-boat during the height of the Atlantic campaign. Every bolt, every droplet of sweat, every terrified breath feels real because it was built from truth. Based on Lothar Günther Buchheim's novel, which drew from his own wartime experiences aboard U-96, the film recreates life in a submarine with astonishing precision. Petersen built a full-scale interior mounted on hydraulics to mimic real movement and pressure. The actors were kept in tight quarters for months, filming in sequence so their exhaustion was genuine. Historians call Das Boot the most authentic depiction of submarine warfare ever made. It doesn't take sides. It humanizes both victory and defeat. The sailors aren't villains or heroes, just young men trapped in an iron coffin beneath an unforgiving ocean. The sound design alone, that haunting sonar ping, the metallic groans of the hull, remains unmatched. Das Boot isn't entertainment, it's immersion. By the time it ends, you feel as if you've lived through the Atlantic yourself. For historians and film lovers alike, Das Boot remains the ultimate standard, tense, tragic, and painfully true. The Battle of the Atlantic was the longest and most merciless fight of the Second World War, a war of patience, silence, and unseen courage. These 15 films didn't just tell that story, they felt it. From the diesel fumes of Das Boot to the icy courage of the cruel sea, each one kept faith with the men who faced that endless ocean. Which film captured it best for you? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic deep dives.